Welcome to the Female VC Lab podcast. I'm here with Jeep in one line. Can you give me your name, your title, and the name of your fund?
I am Jeep Kline. My title is venture partner at Mr. Pink VC.
Wonderful. So, what inspired you to become a VC or an investor?
Yeah, when I ran a startup company, an early stage pre-IPO company a few years back, I learned a lot from the venture capital. I learned how to raise funds. And I realized that one of the big problems in venture market is that to raise funds successfully as entrepreneurs, you have to have network, or you have to have mutual friends who can introduce you to the VCs. And I wanted to break that. I want to break the wall and open up for a lot of talented entrepreneurs all around the world, especially emerging markets. When I looked back in my experience, I am an economist by training. I traveled to a lot of countries in my previous work. There are a lot of talents and entrepreneurs emerging all around the world who do not have access to funding, who might not be the inner circle of Silicon Valley. I thought it is not the right way to do things. And I want to bring the capital to those overlooked people and companies who have potentially built something, technology, and scale them for success.
Wow, that's wonderful. So tell me a little bit about your investment thesis and what is the motivation behind your investment thesis there?
Yeah, my investment thesis basically came from the motivation that I really want to democratize capital access, especially for technology industry all around the world, especially emerging markets. Now, at Mr. Pink, especially, we would like to invest in Latin America region, especially high growth Spanish speaking countries. And that is the focus on our current fund. And this is our fund one. We just hit the ground and run with it. We try to identify local talents on the ground who know the market really well, who can potentially scale their company within the country, within the region, and hopefully at a global scale. So our thesis is that there are a lot of highly talented, underserved entrepreneurs in a lot of regions in emerging markets who can become very successful, become a unicorn. And we started investing in South America right away. And hopefully in the follow-on funds a few years from now, we are going to expand in other regions, including Southeast Asia from Bangkok, Thailand. And also Eastern European countries as well. Those are the gist of our thesis. We want to serve underserved.
Wonderful. So how, I'm going to throw in an extra question. How did you come up with the name of Mr. Pink VC?
Yeah, it's from a movie that made Quentin Tarantino famous. It's a
dog. Okay.
Yes, and Mr. Pink is one of the characters that, who was underestimated. He didn't appear to be smart, but he was in the movie, he was very strategic. And after all the fight and whatnot, he was the only person who came out alive. And because this is our fund, we are humble, we work hard, and sometimes we are underdog, but we know what we are doing.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. I'm sure other people will be wondering, what is this Mr. Pink VC? Now we know. All right. So, Jeep, what are you currently learning or listening to or reading these days?
I like reading economic papers written by economists. And the topic that I really is around behavioral finance. What causes bias in investment? What you might have heard about people are overconfident, whether that may be CEO or investors and whatnot, which I also read a book called Super Forecasting, the art and science of prediction, because we know that investing is hard. Investment is very hard, and a lot of investment firms actually fail. And so trying to be methodical about it, try to differentiate signal from noise, what we do is, and what is talk about is, the more information that you learn from the market is the better, and you need to update your analysis and evaluation model. And on top of that, crowdsourcing, having a diverse team is very important because, as an example, if you ask people, one person to guess how many gumballs are in a machine, you might not get the right answer if you ask one person. If you ask maybe 100 or 1,000 people and you average the answer across, you are more likely to get the right answer. And it's the same thing as investment. If you ask a woman versus a man, they might have different opinion about whether or not to invest in a particular startup or technology or entrepreneur and why. So when we realize the bias in the system, so what we are trying to do is we have a structured way on how we look at the business and how we evaluate each business independently, not being influenced or being groupthink. And then we also invite other people, our advisors, our team, our diverse team, to really weigh in the input in a way that try to eliminate the bias in the system.
Mm-hmm. I like that approach. The way you're thinking about that, I really like that. So here's your bonus question, Jeep. In 2 years when we're talking, but we'll be talking before that, how do you see investing and or venture capital having evolved or changed?
I think that the market would, especially emerging markets, would understand more about how venture capitalists can really impact the local economies. Mm-hmm. They started to learn about that now, whether that may be South America or Southeast Asia or in Africa or Eastern European countries. Mm-hmm. But in 2-3 years from now, I think they will want to get involved, or I hope they will want to get involved more in building local technology ecosystem. Just to give you an example, specifically, a few years back before the pandemic, I traveled extensively to Southeast Asia in different countries, meeting with the government and enterprise business. And some of them started to realize that the incumbent businesses are being disrupted by companies and technologies from the US, from the Bay Area. But they don't quite know how to handle it. They wanted to do more research about it on how they can get engaged and involved, maybe through technology transfer if they invest in a fund, maybe through learning from entrepreneurs if they invest directly. But invest directly might still be very hard because they're not exposed to that initially. Now, it is 2 years later. I already see the trends of venture investment. For example, about 5 billion already went into South America versus 2 years ago, it was half of that. And so 2 years from now, I think it's going to be double. So I think 2 years from now, we're going to have a lot more interest. And this time, not just from the US investors who want to invest in emerging markets, but also the ecosystem, the businesses, the government who also see this as an opportunity for business development. I think, or I hope that will happen in a few years from now.
Yeah, it's so nascent, like it's so early. It's almost like Silicon Valley early. And it's like, how do you now go about not necessarily building that type of ecosystem, but how do these countries create these types of ecosystems for themselves so that they can now be more autonomous in how they want to create innovation in their own companies, in their own countries, you know?
Yes, absolutely. Completely agree. That's why we want to be there first. And we are already there to help catalyst the ecosystem and support entrepreneur. And we target the seed round to help them since day one and help them scale.
Yeah, no, that's important. All right, Jeep, how do people get into contact with you?
LinkedIn, Twitter, and website, mrpink.vc.
Thank you so much, Jeep Kline from Mr. Pink VC, for being our guest on the Female VC Lab podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.